Welcome to the Rescue, Rebuild, Restore podcast, where we equip church leaders and compassionate Christians to serve the hurting with spirit-led wisdom. I'm your host, Suzanne Burns, author of the book, Rescue, Rebuild, Restore, Compassion That Works. Together, we're going to explore how to rescue body and soul, rebuild spirit and will, and restore lives through the Holy Spirit's power. Because every person deserves to be seen, healed, and loved. Let's dive into today's episode and discover how to live out this calling.
I want you to give her the warmest welcome, Suzanne Burns, as she comes right now. It's yours.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. And what's funny is, and Rhonda may not even know this, but my mama was the flower girl in Cecil and Joyce's wedding. Yep. So it's a very small world. So I'm very glad to be here tonight. I'm very, very honored to be invited. I've been praying about what I would share with you guys because we do a lot of different things. We've been around now for 11 years. We've housed over 160 moms and their children. We have served well over 1,200 as well through our non-residential programs. Some of those complete families, some of those actually men, all of which did not need or were not ready for our residential services. So we do a wide range of things. But I think tonight what the Lord wants me to talk about is how we started and how we keep ourselves going. Because I feel like you guys are very much in that same space. So I came to Lee as a very sheltered young Christian girl. My parents were living in Colorado at the time, and so I'm third generation Lee student, so I'm very honored to carry that mantle. Unfortunately, none of my kids have gone to Lee yet, so it might end with me, I don't know, but I am very honored. But when I did come to Lee, I didn't realize how shallow my roots actually were. I had grown up, I didn't ever have a curfew. I was voted most likely to become a nun by my high school graduating class. Yeah, super great honor to a young 18-year-old girl. And so, but the thing is that I was just a good kid. I just didn't get in trouble. I didn't know that you could do that. Like my mom prayed down the walls at the audacious hour of 9:37, till I came walking in the doors, right? So I had no idea how shallow my roots actually were until I get 1,800 miles away from home. And suddenly, this was back before cell phones. I'm getting pretty old, pretty up there. So I could choose when I wanted to call mama and when I didn't, what I wanted to listen to and what I didn't, what I wanted to tell her and what I didn't. And so by the time I was a junior in college, I found myself in a dating relationship where we were smoking, we were drinking, experimenting with illegal drugs. And then inevitably, wake up one day pregnant. And I would love to say that was my wake-up call, but it was not. It was not. We got married because, of course, that's what you do as a young Christian. You get married, and it was as unhealthy a marriage as it was a dating relationship. And so we lasted about 2 years before I finally just one day woke up and said, what am I doing? Why am I here? My mother-in-law at the time, my little son, she was babysitting. She would watch him while I was out at work. So my first husband was a musician, which to him meant he didn't have to actually work. I had to work. I was running the roads trying to sell insurance, trying to make as much money as I could to provide for us. And meanwhile, he's at the house either asleep or playing video games. And then when he would have a gig, he'd either get paid in drugs or in furniture. So we ended up with like several futons and TVs. Like, I don't know. But it wasn't money that would pay my phone bill. It wasn't money that was going to pay my rent. I wasn't buying no diapers with what he brought in. And so one day I was really frustrated. was coming to pick up my son from my mother-in-law's house, and had just had one of those days where, like, appointment after appointment. My territory was Dunlap to Sweetwater, so I mean, I was running the roads. I was out of gas. I was, finding change in the bottom of the car to try and get a gallon or two. And, of course, fortunately, gas back then was considerably cheaper. So I was at least able to get myself home. But I remember telling her, I was sitting on the edge of the bed while she was, like, picking up his little toys and putting them in his cute little backpack that she had bought him. And I said, I just don't understand why God won't bless me. And, of course, she turns to me and she says, well, darling, what are you doing God can bless? And then she just turned back and kept right on doing. She didn't say one more thing about it, didn't make me feel any kind of way. She just asked a question. And in that instant, I was stripped naked. Sitting there on the bed, on the corner of the bed, watching my life flash before my eyes. What was I doing? What was I doing? That was the week before Thanksgiving of 2000. And from that point forward, I quit drugs and alcohol pretty easily that same day. Cigarettes took a little bit more time. Thank you. Cigarettes took a couple more weeks, but then it took several months to figure out what I was going to do with this marriage. And that was really hard because I was raised that marriage is permanent. Marriage lasts. Marriage is forever. My parents would have been married 54 years 55 years. It would have been 55 years this November, but my daddy passed a couple of years ago. And so that's what I was raised to believe. And we went through marriage counseling. Pastor Bell at Westwood did marriage counseling for us, and I really tried. And we reached a point where one day I was picking, because I had moved out, one day I was picking Caden up, and I had the impression to ask him one more time, will you come with me? Metaphorically, physically, will you come with me? Will you lay down these things and come live this different lifestyle with me? And he said, no, I don't want to do that. And so the impression that I received instantaneously was of the 72 being directed, if you are not welcomed, you shake the dust off your feet and you move on. And so that was my permission. So fast forward a few years, I meet and marry now my second husband. We've been married 23 years and have a second son. And so when Ethan started getting older, that's my younger son, we started, we were getting back in church, getting more established, getting more comfortable with the whole blended family lifestyle. And somebody came to speak at my church, very similar to this, and they were talking about New Hope and the pregnancy center. And I thought, well, I was that girl. I could help. I could volunteer. I could do something. And so I did. So I went and I applied and I sat through the trainings, and I ended up being a volunteer there for 7 years. And absolutely loved every minute of it. Loved my work there, loved meeting the girls, loved pouring into them one day a week. Saw some frustrations, saw some difficulties. We began seeing, this was during like the 2007 and 8 crises. And so we started seeing more and more trauma situations coming through. We would occasionally get a girl who was living in her car or who was being kicked out. And here we are advocating to choose life, but yet she's facing very real consequences of what choosing life will actually mean. And so I really began to get a good understanding of why abortion is so tempting. Even though I'm fully 100% pro-life, that never changed, but it did make it easier for me to empathize with her decisions. And so over time, we just kept praying for a residential program. We kept saying, Lord, we need some place for these girls to go. We would try shepherding homes. We would try putting them up in hotel rooms. We would try all sorts of different things, but it always fell apart. it always ended in disaster in some way, shape, or form. And so in June of 2011, it was my day to work, and so one of the clients that came in that day, she was pushing her little 3-month-old in a stroller, and she was really frustrated, really down on herself, and she said, I'm so discouraged. I'm going on job interview after job interview after job interview, and I can't get the job. I'm so disheartened. I'm so frustrated. And so, I'm a natural fixer, so my first questions were, okay, so what kinds of jobs are you applying for? I'm looking to see, is she a poor interviewer? Is she applying for the wrong jobs? What can I do to fix the problem? And she said, at some point in the interview, the baby gets fussy, or he needs a diaper change. And, the interview is just kind of over at that point. And of course, my first thought was, I'm pretty sure the interview was over when they saw you pushing the baby in the first place. But of course, I knew that was never the full picture. I'd been there long enough. I'd been there, about 6 years at this point. So I knew that there's always something more to the story. So I began asking more questions. And come to find out, the real root issue was that her baby's father was a violent drug dealer who had people in and out of their apartment all times of day and night. Drugs, gangs, money, all kinds of things, to the point where she didn't feel safe leaving their child home alone with him even long enough to go get a job. I went home that day and I told my husband, we've got to do something. We have got to build a place for these girls. And that was the day Foundation House was birthed. Thank you. So it took us about 3 years to actually get open. We opened in May of 2014, and boy, were we naive. I was used to seeing these girls an hour a month, right? I'm an expert at this. I know their problems. I know how to help. I know how to talk with them. What I didn't know was how well they could mask the truth of the rest of the month, right? So suddenly we start living with these girls. Metaphorically, I've never lived in the house, but I was responsible for them 24/7. Girl, they crazy. I know these three. I know they're crazy. Our very first client, her name was Shay. I tell this story in this book. She came from Chattanooga, from the 4th Street Apartments. She had been kicked out by her mom. It was actually her mom's apartment that they had been living in. So she comes to us with a 2-week-old, and work with her all through the summer. It was like pulling teeth to try to get her to do anything. She got to the 12th grade before she dropped out of school, and she was about 24 by the time she came to us. So, of course, my little ignorant soul, I thought she got to the 12th grade. I thought she could read, she could do stuff. All she needed was just a little bit of help, get her GED, get up on the streets, to work. No. So we get her into GED classes, and all she could say was, they hate me there. It's stupid. They don't know how to teach. They don't teach right. They don't do this right. They don't do that right. And here I am all day long trying to I'm juggling. Like, I'm holding her child while she's in these classes, while I'm trying to raise money from donors, while I'm also trying to figure out what to do with her next and how to keep her moving forward, while I'm also, through the summer, I remember Ethan was there, my younger son was there in the office, because of course I couldn't afford childcare of my own, so he's just being raised right up alongside these girls most of his life. And she's just given me grief. 24/7, she's given me grief. I'm like, how can you not understand that you need a GED? How is that? Why are we arguing about this? Why are we arguing about this? How do you not know that this is what you need in order to be stable? But she wasn't having it. And so she found herself a job out in Hamilton Place. Y'all remember we live in Cleveland, right? So, but we didn't know how to say no yet. We do now. We learned that. So here we are driving her to Hamilton Place every weekend so she could work, and then her mama would pick her up in the evenings, and then she'd stay the weekend, and we'd pick her back up Sunday evening to be with us Monday through, Friday morning. It was the weirdest schedule I've ever seen, but it made her happy. It made her happy. So she's getting to spend time with mom. Mom's getting to love on her grandson. We've got her during the week. She's finally settling into some of these classes that we've arranged for her. And then just all of a sudden, early September, the bottom falls out of everything. And she just bowed up and stopped. She just said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not interested. I'm leaving. I'm packing up and leaving. And first of all, I was devastated. And then I was pissed. So not going to lie. But I was also so I gave her an ultimatum. I remember I said, and this is not in the book, but I said, all right, I'm coming to get you tomorrow morning. Pack up all your stuff. I'm coming to get you tomorrow morning, and I'll take you home. But I knew that I'm actually a secret softie. So y'all don't cover your ears up. And so I was fully prepared to get there and see all of her stuff packed, and I would relent. Well, y'all, what do you think I showed up to see? She didn't have one thing packed. If she emptied her purse on the floor, there wasn't nothing packed. She was not ready whatsoever. She was anticipating me giving in. Yeah. And I'm telling you, I raised 2 boys. So mama gonna win. You cannot out-stubborn mama. So she learned the hard way that, by golly, we were going home. And so where I was prepared to be relenting, no, I didn't. But what I did end up doing was take 2 SUVs full of stuff back to her mom's apartment. Shoes, boxes and boxes of brand new shoes, purses, all sorts of stuff she bought there at the mall on her job. Oh, that was the reason why she bowed up. That was it, because I finally was like, I have to see your bank statements. You've been saying that you're saying, you've been saving, you've been saying that you're ready. I have to see them. And that was actually the straw that broke the camel's back for her. But it took me 2 SUVs full. And come to find out, she hadn't been saving nothing. Not one thing. So here I am, this brand new fledgling ministry, literally taking our very first client back to the exact same location that I'd got her out of. I hadn't helped her one bit. I hadn't rescued her. I hadn't helped her rebuild her life. I hadn't done any kind of benefit into her at all. That was devastating. We almost closed. There had been 6 bajillion reasons why we've almost closed over the years, but that was the first one. And very gently, the Lord began to teach me. He began to teach me about poverty thinking and poverty mindset. And then slowly over time, I started to understand that. He started sending me clients where I could, he always sent me a client to help me understand, okay, clearly I don't know something. And then he would send me the education, and then he would send me the clients to begin practicing, to begin actually helping in that area. That's the pattern he's done all over the years. So first it was poverty mindset, and really understanding that poverty thinking is very different than poverty, material poverty. They all too often go hand in hand, but you can be extremely wealthy, and I've met donors that are extremely wealthy and yet are afraid to fall back into poverty, afraid that if they don't have their $200,000 and $300,000 and $500,000 in the bank, that they are, one step away from insolvency. They are one step away from homelessness. I can tell you, working nonprofit full time, I'm a lot closer to it than they will ever be. But so we learned about poverty thinking, and then we started getting clients. We had one girl, her name was Alex, And we had got her, she had just turned 18. She was in the juvenile detention center in Chattanooga. And she had been in foster care really since she was about 3 years old. And she had been adopted and then unadopted. Like, I didn't know that was a thing. But it turns out when certain things happen to you within the house, I'm making sure there are no minors in here, few minors in here. When certain things happen to you in your adoptive family's home, that can absolutely be an unadoption. So she went through such great tragedy that from the time she was about 15, she was a runaway. So they finally found her and had her in this juvenile detention center. She's now pregnant with twins, so they call the only maternity home in 150 miles. Lucky us. This was early 2016. And we started seeing an unusual pattern in our little house. The toilet paper was just disappearing. I mean, it was disappearing. And like, this was long before the great toilet emergency and from COVID. So, you know, we really had no idea that there was a toilet paper black market, right? So we started saying, what the heck is going on? And then the Lord sends us so graciously some teaching. And we became certified family trauma professionals by learning about how trauma affects the brain development, which affects the body physiology of these girls. And come to find out, her real issue was that her trauma had begun at such an early age that her intestinal system had never fully developed. So by the time, and then she had subsisted, right, for several years, homeless on the streets, on Cheetos, on Mountain Dew, on whatever she could find. And so she gets into our house, and we're fixing her supper. We're fixing her real meals 3 times a day. We've got actual juice and not just, colored water. And her system didn't know what to do with it. Didn't know what to do with healthy nutrients. And so we learned about the physical effects of trauma. And that answered so many questions. In an instant, that was the real game changer for our ministry. When we began to understand that it was not just about getting them into a safe place, getting them a safe bed, getting them security, getting them hope, getting them education, getting them classes, getting their GED, even though they all hate it. It was actually much deeper than that. There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. And that was one of the big things that the Lord sent me during that time. And it is so phenomenal to understand how your brain and your body are permanently affected by what you experience. And so because of that, now we knew why these girls were the way they were, why they're wearing pajamas to court, why they're taking their babies at 3 a.m. to Walmart, because I need to go to Walmart. It's all the same process. It's all interrelated. And so that allowed us to start walking in so much greater grace, so much greater mercy. Now, we still won't kill them quite often, but we don't. We don't. I mean, that's still illegal in Tennessee. But it makes so much more sense now. And so now we can teach them about brain science and about how trauma caused your brain to be rewired. And that's that quick anger reflex, that quick desire to just run away, to just throw it all away. That's because of what happened to you. That is not your response. And so when we know these things, now we can start to own the response. And so when I don't know that my rapid anger response is a leftover from what I experienced as a child, then I'm powerless to change it. But once I do know, now I have a decision to make. I can do the hard thing and change, which is a very hard thing, or I can go back to those old patterns. But the problem is, even when you go back to those old patterns, you know too much. You know the difference now. And so what we've seen is all too often some of our girls, they will leave too soon, right? We don't have a time limit on our program. We would love to, but we can't, because our mission is to get them to a place of sustainable stability. So when she can maintain her stability on her own, that's when she's ready for graduation and for independence. That's housing, employment, childcare, and transportation. That can take years. So, Lord knows, we're going to have them till Jesus comes back. Okay, they're content with that. So, but what we've seen too often is girls, they get sick of it. You know, they hit a wall where they can't go any further. They can't do it any longer. I just want to go back. I just want to be on my own. I just want freedom. Okay, sis, you know too much now. But you're welcome to go. And so inevitably, what ends up happening is they get right back into those old situations, those old pathways, those old dating relationships, those old drug trap houses, and old actions, right? Because it's what they know. But they know too much. And so now they experience it, and suddenly they're like, oh, that's what you meant. Oh, I am worth more than this. There is a better place for me. I don't deserve to be treated like this. I remember one time Angie Benefield, when she was the director of Harbor House, way back when Foundation House was just getting open. She was a fantastic, fantastic lady. She said, our goal at the domestic violence shelter is not for these ladies to never come back through our doors. Our goal is for them to come in 3 weeks as opposed to 3 years. And that stuck with me so powerfully. And so that's how we treat our clients who leave too early. What's going to be different is the first question, because you're not just going to come back and just waste all my food and eat everything that the donors donate. That's not good. That's not being a good steward on my part. But what's different? Are you ready to come back? Have you learned the difference in where you were and where you could be? And are you ready to do the hard things? And if she's ready, she's welcome to come back. We've had a number of girls who have come back over the years, and every single one who did are rock stars. We have several now on staff, on permanent staff. We have seen girls get married. We have seen girls buy houses. We have also seen girls get their very first car, their very first ability to leave the property on their own and go shoot up fentanyl with their baby in the back seat. We've seen it all. We've seen it all. But it still comes down to choice. She knows too much. And so when you know too much about Jesus, sin can't ever be as enticing as it was. You can chase after it. You can try to recapture the fun, but it is not ever going to be as much fun as it used to be. It just can't be, because you know the truth. And so these girls will text us. They'll scout us out on Facebook. They'll say, hey, what's Miss Lisa cooking for supper tonight? They'll say, hey, can I get a ride? Hey, do you have any diapers nearby? I could really use a little bit of help. And sometimes they come into the office and they check in and they touch bases. And sometimes we get preschool pictures and kindergarten graduation pictures. And sometimes we see them in the just busted. Yeah. Yeah. It's all about choices. Yeah. But we don't do anything different than any of these other programs. All we really do is love them. We just love them. Our mission is rescuing mothers, rebuilding lives, and restoring futures. That's our goal. The rescuing part, that's the fun, that's the sexy, that's the exciting, that's being out in the streets. I've packed up girls, in a hurry before their violent boyfriend got home from work, so that they could be out of those homes safely. I've cleaned up girls out of their own vomit, loaded them up in the back of my car, and carried them to the safe house till they sobered up, and then we yelled at them. There's no point yelling at them when they're passed out. It's just not worth it. But I've done all of these things. I've rescued, and that's a lot of fun. But that's my effort. That's not her decision. She needs rescuing, but that's my work. Rebuilding, that's where the work actually comes in for her. That's where the rubber meets the road, and she has to start learning how to implement it. But she also needs us there the whole time, holding her hand, encouraging her, egging her on, pushing her, saying, you can do more. You can be better, and we are not going to allow you to settle. And that's where sometimes she quits. And that's where sometimes she perseveres. But I've been a Christian long enough to be able to say, yep. There's been plenty of times when the Lord's been pushing me into something, and I've been like, no thank you. And then, a week, a year, a decade later, I eventually, get on the program with the Lord, turns out he's not wrong. So eventually I figure that out, But so do our girls. So we want to commit murder, but we don't. And we get blessed by the fact that eventually they start getting it. And that's when they move into the restoration piece. And this is where it is almost entirely on them. We're just there cheering them on. All of my kids are grown and out of the house now, and I've got several grandbabies, which, this is the perfect way to raise kids. I'm just saying. Yeah, grandbabies are way easier than kids. But it's the exact same principle. My kids don't need me anymore, but my kids absolutely need me. Right? My mama's 82 years old. I don't need her. I'm almost 50. And also, I absolutely need my mama. Yes, amen. And so that's what we are for these girls. When they get to that place of restoration, we're just family. We're just having Thanksgiving together. We're having lunch. We're celebrating. We're encouraging her. We're cheering on the first day of school pictures. We're the ones getting those excitements. They lost their first tooth. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. And yet there are still plenty others that are out there that don't know how good it is on this side. Amen. We get calls every day from girls who need help. And then they hear, oh, this is a program. Oh, I got to give up my phone for 2 weeks? I might just live in my car. I might just stay at the homeless shelter. I think we've had people, she calls in the morning, makes an appointment to come in the afternoon, and then no shows. She's 3 months pregnant, so it's not that big of a deal. She calls us again when she's 8 months pregnant, and so that's a big deal. And come to find out, she says, well, I met this guy at Hardee's and decided to go stay with him for a while. Yeah. There's trade-offs. But the reality is that these girls are no different than any of us. That's right. We've all traveled roads that have led us through trauma. We've all had to battle poverty thinking. Even if we were raised in Anatole, we still have to battle the idea that God's not enough. And so these girls, they just go through exactly what we go through. You may not have had a meth addiction. You may not have had criminal charges, have felonies hanging over your heads. You may not have lost custody of children. But also, you may have. You may have. You may not have divorce in your background, but you may have. The reality is that we are all in the exact same place, slowly allowing the Holy Spirit to help us be more fully conformed into the image of Jesus. And so even when these girls leave, even when we are so angry or we are so disappointed or we desire so much to beg them to stay, we know that sometimes that is part of her journey that is going to bring her ultimately to the feet of Jesus. And so as much as we grieve, we trust that he knows better than we do. And so everything we do comes down to, how can I love you as Christ loves? How can I show you what unconditional love looks like? Now, I was blessed with a very realistic mama. And one of the things she taught me over the years was there's two things that I will never forget. First of all, she taught me I'll tell you what I was going to tell you first, and then I'll allow myself to get sidetracked because it's a funny story. But what she would say is, honey, I love you unconditionally. I love you so much that the doctors had to cut you out of me. She had to have C-section. But also, I don't like you right now, and I need you to leave the room. So I learned very early that that's two very different things. I can love you unconditionally, and I can also really not want to see your face right now. That's okay, because I will later, and it'll be fine. And then the other thing that's just, I love to tell this story, but anyways, you'll think it's funny. So I was learning to drive stick shift. My dad thought that it was incredibly important for somebody to learn to drive stick shift. The problem was that it was in Colorado. Right, exactly. The foothills. I mean, imagine having to live up on Big Frog or something, or Mont Eagle, and you're learning stick shift. No, it was not fun. It was not fun. I was very intimidated. People didn't appreciate that I was just learning, so they came up too close at the stop signs. Not cool, not cool. So I was complaining about it, and my mama said, now, honey, of course, she's very Southern. She was raised in New Orleans. She said, now, honey, if guys named Bubba can do this, so can you. Right, exactly. So that's the other half of this. I was like, if other people can do this, I can too. If somebody else can start a ministry, apparently I can too. If somebody else can lead a church, well, if I'm assigned to, I can too. If you can do it, so can I. And so those two pieces have been what has sustained me through the ups and downs of this ministry journey. And it has also been what has provided the foundation for how we raise these girls, because that's exactly what we're doing. We're raising kids. They all come to us about 15 years old, regardless of whether they're in 30-year-old bodies. They're all about 15, bless their hearts. And I know what to do with 15-year-olds. You run them, you keep them busy, you keep them active until they pass out in the bed at night. And then you do it all the next day. And that's how you get grown kids that end up with grandbabies. And so it's those two pieces that really solidified how we love these girls so well. It's not my responsibility whether or not they choose to begin the restoration process. They choose to start doing this for themselves. That's not my decision to make. That's theirs. But I'm going to love them regardless. I'm also going to come really close to murdering them. I'm also going to continue to love them, even when they leave badly, even when they're cursing me, even when they're, blocking me or blowing me up. Either one, it doesn't matter, because she's not who she's gonna be in this moment. And so she can do whatever she wants to do. I can't tell you how many F words I've heard. We've had girls who have shot up on property, who have drugs, not guns. I said that weird. We had to call the ambulance one time because one was ODing in my office. That doesn't happen very often, but stories, right? So we've had all of these things happen over the years, but yet nevertheless, that same exact girl shoots me a message on Facebook, I'm going to respond.
That's right. That's right.
I might not send her money. I might not invite her back into the house, but I'm going to respond. I'm going to love her where she is, and I'm going to let her know that I love you unconditionally. That has nothing to do with whether or not I approve of your actions right now. And at whatever point you're ready to start making a true and lasting change, I'll be here. I'll be here. And so over the years, we've been able to boast a 97% success rate. Those girls who graduate are able to maintain their stability for at least a year, and 85% are still maintaining it 5 years later. It is. And also, they live with us till Jesus comes back, until they are well and truly ready to be independent. They have to be here. Otherwise, I haven't done them any favors. If all she does is get that baby born, get past the 6 weeks postpartum, and then it's, see ya, good luck, wish you well, I'll be praying for you. And all she does is go right back into the old ways, the old habits, the old patterns. But now she has an infant with her. I've not benefited her. I've not shown her how to have the life more abundant. I've set her up not only for her, but then for her child to now be in foster care, for her child to be at risk of all sorts of untold things. So I'm the one who will ultimately have to stand before the Lord for every single one of these girls that has come through our doors. I take that very serious. I know that I am not the one responsible for their decisions, for him or against him. But I will stand before him and say, yeah, I loved her the best I could. And so that's what we do. We love these girls. We love these girls. I cannot imagine my life without these girls. And every single new one that comes in just fits. You hear the story, you see, the information on a sheet of paper, and you think, oh, how is she going to fit into the home? How is she going to work with the rest of us? How is this going to upset the apple cart? But just like having yet another baby, some way, somehow, you just find more room in the SUV, and you just keep right on going. The Lord always brings the right people at the right time. And he brings us the teaching that we need in order to serve them to the best of our abilities. We've become experts in addiction. We've become experts in mental health. We're now learning about moral injury and how that's different than some of the PTSD type things that we're well familiar with through trauma. And it's always because, how can I help her better? How can I serve her faster? How can I accomplish more with her while I have time?
Thank you for joining me on the Rescue, Rebuild, Restore podcast. I pray this episode has equipped you to serve with greater clarity and compassion. If you're ready to go deeper, grab a copy of Rescue, Rebuild, Restore, Compassion That Works on either Amazon or at rescuerebuildrestore.com. And while you're there, you can also join our Rescue, Rebuild, Restore Compassion Collective.